Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome. We're going to have some fun today, and we're going to talk about artificial intelligence use in China. And we're going to take a very personal tour and a lighter side tour through my use of artificial intelligence through my day in downtown Shanghai. Now, the picture you see below you is the skyline of Shanghai taken from my apartment window. I live on the 28th floor. I have a spectacular view, and you can see off to the right the big high rises, which are part of the financial district. And if you look in the bottom of the screen, you can see the smaller brown roofs of houses that were built in the 1930s when this part of Shanghai was a former part of the French concession long ago in a different world. So AI in China is a huge topic right now. There is not a day that goes by when we're not reading about the AI race between China and the United States and who is winning. And I'll start very clearly by saying it's a terrible idea. There's no race, okay? Really, the issue is really what is the relation that you have with AI in your life? So this concept of who's winning, who is the AI supreme, is pretty much a meaningless metric for most of us. I understand that within research institutions, it is a real number of patents, is a real measure or a real metric. But for most of us, who has the smartest AI, who has the fastest AI, we really don't care, and it doesn't mean much to us. I often liken the concept of who is the AI winner with who has the best car. So that depends, doesn't it? Really, you could say, well, the Ferrari is the better car of the two in this picture, but if you have two kids, the Ferrari is pretty useless. Now, at the same time, if you're on a racetrack somewhere, the minivan is pretty useless. So the concept of who has the best AI or who is winning the AI race is sort of like who's got the best car. It is a meaningless measure that doesn't really tell us very much. So what's a much better measure? Well, the real issue is how does AI fit into your life? And what I thought I would do is look at how I use AI in Shanghai in my daily life and compare it to how you use it. Now, look, I've been away from the West, other than visiting my mom and my family, for more than 10 years now. So I admit that I am not up on the latest ways that people use AI in the US and Canadian market. So I admit that. But I clearly know how we use Uber, Amazon Alexa, Google, Hey Siri, and of course Netflix, which, yes, I watch from China, no problem. So what we really want to look at is how AI fits in my life in China and compare that with how AI fits into your life in the West. All right. And there are going to be some real differences. And some things may make you say, wow, that's pretty good. China does some really great things with AI. And other things, of course, may not make you feel so comfortable. So these are the primary companies that I use. So where you're using Netflix and Amazon, we're using a different suite of apps. And the two big ones, though, are off to my left is WeChat, which is the messaging platform, which is what we call a super app, which means it doesn't just do messaging, but it has many other functions that are built into it. And on the far right side in the blue boxes, we have Alipay, which is part of Alibaba and financial. So actually, there are three boxes here. The bottom left corner, which is Alibaba, which is the parent company for Ant Financial, which is the company of Alipay. So perhaps a little bit confusing. And I just switched screens, but I'll go right back. So So these are the companies that I use every day in my life, and we're going to take a look at how we use them. Let us, before diving into looking at the examples of how I use AI, let's meet the controversy right off the bat. I understand that AI use is controversial, and I acknowledge that. While the majority of my presentation will be somewhat lighthearted, I do understand that there are serious issues at play, and I do not make light of them. And we can really look at it in what are the rules and laws that govern the use of AI. And in the West, we're using facial recognition, but we have no real laws that tell us where we can and cannot use them. And there is no better example than that of this than, of course, Clearview AI. Clearview AI amassed 3 billion facial photos of people and sold their AI systems to companies to use for shoplifting, all kinds of uses that were private. Of course, they sold them to law enforcement, which is a major concern. So there is tremendous blowback over facial recognition and use of AI, and we have to acknowledge that, and I do. All right. So, but we also have to acknowledge that this technology is not going away. So when you look in the U.S. airports now, 97% of passengers will be scanned. Both right now, all foreign arrivals are scanned, but within the next couple of years, all airports, all citizens are going to be subject to AI scans when you go through the airport. And we live arguably in a world in the West that is part of surveillance capitalism. So if you look at Facebook, a great book, by the way, I highly recommended, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. But we live in a world where we have to acknowledge that companies like Facebook, Google, Apple to a certain degree, but less, we are the product, and our data is certainly the product of companies like Facebook that have 99% of their revenue coming through advertising. So I just want to talk about the serious side of AI use and acknowledge up front that these are major societal issues that have to be solved and have yet to be solved. All right, so let's look at the number one use for I use every day, and this is payment. Okay, many of you may know that China has basically gone cash-free. Everybody in the major cities uses either WeChat Pay or Alipay, two payment methods that use a QR code-based system. So when you go to the cash register, you scan your QR code. Then built into the app, there is facial recognition. So when I go to pay for my coffee, the lady behind the register has a scanning machine. I simply show her my phone, and then we get scanned, and then I look at my phone, and what I'll see is the gray box here. It'll actually show when it works, and if it works, it's very fast, so I couldn't take a picture. So if you look, it says face not recognized. In that little smiley face would be my face, and the facial recognition that is not built into the phone, like Apple, you open your phone with facial recognition, right? But this is facial recognition built into the app itself. That facial recognition will allow me to complete my payment. So that is absolutely the number one use for AI, because I pay for things so many times a day. And this is a feature of both, of course, WeChat Pay and Alipay. Now, I understand that in the West, we don't have these QR code scan payment systems, and that we're reliant mostly on card swipes or card taps, or those who are using NFC in the form of Apple Pay, so or Google Pay. So we certainly use a lot of facial recognition to open our phone, but this is a unique way of using facial recognition in the China market, and it's part of the payment system, and it is the #1 of all the ways that I use facial recognition. Now, this is one of several ways that we use facial recognition. One is in the app. The other is, and this is a bakery near my house, and this is a point of sale system that looks basically like an iPad, and you walk up to it and you say, you push the button and you say, I want to use Alipay. WeChat Pay also has this, but Alipay is more better distributed in my neighborhood. You walk up and you literally smile, and as you can see, it takes your picture, it knows who you are, and I think you have to, and yes, you have to press one button of acceptance on your cell phone, but this is, no QR code needs to be shown. You simply walk up, push the button that says you want to use facial pay, it takes your picture, you're paid. And it's dramatic. The first time you use this, it's like a sci-fi movie. Ironically, though, the QR code system is probably faster. If you go to a coffee shop where there's a long queue, most people will actually be using the QR code system rather than the facial payment. Even though they're both equally fast, for some reason, facial payment, people either don't want to use it, or they feel that it's more error prone, or it doesn't flow as well if you've got a long queue of people who are all trying to pay for coffee. But it is truly, truly amazing, and it shows up as well in supermarkets. So this is a supermarket that's run by Alibaba, and we're at the checkout counter, and you basically put your stuff down, it all gets scanned in, and you've got a wall-mounted point of sale system that scans you and checks you out. So you can have this in iPad format, and you can have this, of course, in larger format for checking out. So facial recognition used as a security feature for QR code payment and flat-out facial recognition payment. All of these run by the respective companies. They're run by either Alipay or WeChat Pay. So sticking with finance, you can also find AI use and facial recognition used for ATMs. This is not exactly an ATM machine, but it was right in my neighborhood, and I was talking to the bank people, and they recommended this as the best example. Here, if you look at the blue pad on the bottom left corner, this is where you plop down your card. Now, your card could be either the ID card, your personal ID if you're a Chinese citizen, or your bank card, and then you leave it there, look in the screen, the camera's obviously on top, the camera looks at you, and it does facial recognition on you, and you're able to do some bank account services. This machine doesn't dispense cash. My local branch does not have the facial recognition cash dispensing machines yet. I'm sure it's going to get them someday. But this machine allows you to do basic account services from a computer screen, and it uses facial recognition as a form of a login. So we were talking before about both Alipay and WeChat Pay. Both of them have credit scoring built into the apps. So while we're all concerned about credit scores in the West, we have our FICO score, Experian, whatever, there are all these credit scoring companies. Between you and me, being out of the US and Canada for 10 years, the one thing I do not miss is are the credit scoring companies. I'm long away from that now. But this is a screenshot from my cell phone, and this is my credit score of 582. I'll tell you flat out, it is not spectacular. My credit score is actually limited on the upside because I have no credit cards in China. And yes, I pay my bills on time, but without actually being part of the credit process, I'm not able to raise my score too much. Plus, as a foreigner living in China, I'm also somewhat credit limited on the score here. So I'm apologizing already for my low Chinese credit score. Now, just for edification, Sesame credit score is not to be confused with the social score. Now, let me explain. This is very, very common. Many people think of Sesame credit or JIMA credit as being the social score system for China, which is hotly contested. It is true that the original versions of Sesame credit were designed for social credit scoring. That is without question true. They were then not put to that use and converted into straight credit scoring. So when you see somebody talking about Sesame credit being a social credit score, that is not wholly accurate, and I just wanted to make that clear. So what do we get with this? Well, when I use my phone, when I pay money, I'm getting scored, and I have ready access to my score. Now, where does the AI come in? Very simple. Depending on the source, no one really knows exactly what goes in to the Sesame credit score. We do know that some 3,000 to 4,000 different data points are considered, and that the social credit score includes things that would be considered traditional, like how fast you pay your bill, whether you pay it in the beginning of the month or you wait to the middle of the month, but it also includes your network effects, meaning the people to whom you're paying and the people who you're connected with. And it also includes other softer measures that are currently being built into the Western credit rating system. So when we look at credit scoring in the West, we think about it as a simple algorithm of 5 or 6 different scores, how quickly you pay, whether you have outstanding debts. But in fact, increasingly, credit scoring in the West is also using AI to incorporate big data and other softer measures to measure our social score. So going back now, the next one. Now this I use every day. So this is WeChat, which is the social media platform. It is, as you can see on the screens here, it's a way to communicate with people. And you can see I've got a bunch of pictures that I've sent. The lady in the left in pink is actually my Mandarin teacher. And a couple of things to note in this screen. We use a lot of emojis. It's interesting because short messages lack emotional content. The way we make up for that is we put a lot of pictures to share emotional content back and forth between users. And what you'll see here is that there's a 5-second clip. Now, a curious thing is that Mandarin is tough to type. We have keyboards, we operate with our thumbs, and it's hard. It was easier when we all used Blackberries, right? But the thing is, Mandarin is particularly difficult to type in. So rather than type, what she can do is simply record a video clip, record an audio clip, and the audio clip gets gets changed into text. So there's a 5-second clip, then below it you can see the Mandarin, and then below that you can see the translation. So for somebody who's living in China, this app is miraculous. I confess my spoken Mandarin is actually very good. My written Mandarin is like a 1-year-old, it's terrible. So what this allows me to do is to speak slowly and carefully in Mandarin into the WeChat app. It then turns it into characters, and I can send that out to a Mandarin speaker. So we've got this translation system back and forth, and it's speech to text, and then it's text to translate it into English. It is miraculous. And what's important to note is that everything that I've shown you, these are not occasional usage features of AI. This is my bread and butter. I'm on every one of these so far every day. I will confess I do not look at my Sesame credit score every day. That's just a component of the app that I thought was important to show. This is interesting, and it exists in the West. I know that Google has a search feature, Amazon and eBay all have this search feature, but among my friends and family, I don't see people using it. And I can leave it to you to tell me whether it's an important thing in your life. And this is product search. Taobao is the equivalent of Amazon or eBay all rolled together in the Chinese market. And on the left is a picture of a gentleman that I took in the subway because I admired his orange shoulder bag. I like everything with orange. I'm not wearing any today, but generally I have lots of orange, okay? But the point is I'm able to take the picture, input it directly into Taobao through the app, and it finds that object for me. Now I know that this exists. This AI system exists in the West, and I know that Amazon, eBay all use it, but what I'm not sure is how often it's used. Now, let me explain something. Chinese people do not waste money. So when you go to the supermarket or when you go shopping in China, it's very common to see people taking out their cell phones and using the app to take a picture and find out what the real cost of the object should be. Now, clearly, if it's within a couple of RMB one way or another, people may buy it, but sometimes the difference between the retail price and the Taobao price is really big. So this is an AI feature that is a common part of everyone's life, including mine. Now, one of the reasons it's so easy to use is that delivery of objects is all within 24 hours. So I can take a picture of an object, find it on the Taobao, hit the buy button, and if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, by Wednesday, 4 o'clock, I'm gonna have that object delivered to my house. It's that dramatic because the digital distribution system, logistics system is so well developed because of the digital payments from WeChat and Alipay that I mentioned before. But product search is huge, very commonly used, and to my knowledge, I know it exists in the West, but I just don't see it used as often. So here's me. I'm in Chengdu Airport. I walk up to a screen. You can see the picture of me on the left. The screen, I'm taking its picture, but the screen is, of course, taking my picture. And on the right, you can see it's telling me exactly where to go in the airport. So airport facial recognition, not a surprise. Everybody in the West right now is being scanned for facial recognition in airports, as well in China. And this is a great use case. So when you walk up to the screen, it tells you when your flight is, where it's going, and the best way to get there, and how many minutes it takes you to walk there. In this case, it'll take me a few minutes to walk there. So great public service use of AI in the airport. This is a customer service robot taken at my local restaurant. I admit it is a rather dumb customer service service robot. Very nice. The little girl was happy, and it goes around giving people candy. It's not the brightest one I've ever seen. The better ones, actually, you talk to it, you can order your food, and they're much more dramatic than this one. This one, sadly, has been relegated to handing out candies to the kids. So this one is not probably the best example, but they do exist. Now, do they exist at 5-star restaurants? No, that's always the human touch. We all have human ordering services. But if you go to the mall and you're going to a restaurant that is not fast food, but still is fast and convenient, you may have a customer service robot help you at some point, either bringing out your food or you directly order your food through the. We have a problem here with swapping windows, but I think we're back. And so customer service robot, are they common? The answer is no. They are in the news more commonly than they are in use. So I live right next to a big mall. There are 30 restaurants. Out of the 30 restaurants, I had to look hard to find this one. They are certainly showstoppers. I have seen them in use. People love them. They're very amused by them. And I think they're positive, but they are, of course, they're not everywhere, and they're not in use as much as you may see them on the news, but they're certainly there, and they're certainly worth taking a look at. Now look, The local version of Uber that I take every day is called DD. And DD is basically all about ride sharing. And what it does to me is it allows me to communicate with the driver by sharing text messages back and forth that it translates into English or translates into Mandarin. So it's a wonderful feature. And like WeChat, it's a built-in messaging system and a built-in use of translation software. Now, what's interesting is a lot of the cab drivers in Shanghai do not actually speak Mandarin. They speak the local Shanghai dialect, so conversations can be very, very limited. So this software is used every day. Now, look, you're familiar with facial recognition for building entry. I know we've all seen it. But we tend to think of it as a modern high-rise. Oh, this is the latest new office building built. This is a construction site. So facial recognition on entry is not something that's used in Ant Financial's headquarters. It's so new and modern and nobody's seen it. It's at use on construction sites to control who goes in and out. It is commonplace. There is nothing unusual about it. And it's not about being super high-tech, modern, and awe-inspiring. It's just everywhere now, and everybody is used to it. Now, this one is filling out government forms. This is a government form work. I can't show you the end product. Basically, I take my picture, I take my passport picture, it fills in the data, and it does facial recognition comparison between my actual picture and the passport picture. So government forms are now going digital and using facial recognition and AI to make this. This is new this year. This saved me a trip to go to register my address at the police station, which I do every year or so. So rather than having to go to a police station, I can now download the app and do it using facial recognition. So simple use, but certainly very helpful and very practical. Real quickly, these are not things that I use every day, but this has been in the news and we can't avoid talking about it, and that's coronavirus. And this is Alibaba's coronavirus diagnostic system. It's been sold throughout the world. Recently, they just sold another big implementation out into Japan, where you can use CAT scans and it can diagnose coronavirus. I'm just talking about it briefly. This is in the subway. This system is already out of use. This is Alipay, had a subway system where it was using you would scan yourself into the subway car to see if you were in or around people who had COVID. And this is in use. Now, the right-hand screen is something I use every day. It is tracking and tracing. Okay, in the United States, Google and Apple have worked on contact tracing. This is both tracking and tracing, meaning it knows where I've been and who I've been near. And it uses AI to predict who might have COVID or who may have been in contact with somebody. So there's an algorithm, no AI. Basically, I'm near you. But there's another component to this where it goes beyond and tries to be predictive to see who could be in this chain of people who are potentially infected. On the left-hand panel, when I came back to China back in March, I was subjected to a small amount of quarantine, and you can see my daily temperature readings that I was uploading in. So when we look at COVID control, it's been highly digitized in China, and it's been highly successful. I know this is politically charged, but this is what we have, and this is what worked very, very well in China. And yes, it's got AI behind it. And yes, I use this every day. I'm able to go to the yoga studio. I practice yoga. And before practicing yoga, I have to show them my QR code that is green. The code here is green. It could be yellow or red. All right. Now, let's talk about the final use case. This is a street crossing near my house. And you can see all the people looking up at what is a brand new, this was installed last year, crossing guard. You can see the green man. You've got 4 more seconds to cross, but you can also see the video cameras below. And this is what the video cameras below show. The video camera on the video cameras on top. The bottom screen shows people who are currently crossing. The people on the top screen are people who crossed when there was a red light. And the lady on top has been singled out. She crossed when there was a red light, and her facial recognition scan was done. And in certain cities in China, you can get penalized for this. Right now in Shanghai, there are no fines or penalties. I think you might get a reminder in the mail for certain crosswalks in certain places. And I know that this is government use of AI and facial recognition technology that might be controversial. Let me tell you the upside. I've lived in China for 10 years. What you see for facial recognition on the crossings also works for cars and car license plates. And 10 years ago, I can tell you that the roads and streets of Shanghai were at best chaos. And I can tell you that now, 10 years later, it's like Switzerland. That your cab driver would violate a traffic rule is unheard of, unthinkable. 10 years ago, you ask your cab driver to make a U-turn in a busy street, no problem. So one final funny use case is, of course, deep fakes or face swapping. Now you can see this is a famous Chinese actor. And you can see he has changed to someone who is distinctively Western and distinctively older. This app called Zhao was very popular. A lot of people downloaded it, and it was very fun to use here in Shanghai. Look, let's finish up real quickly. Artificial intelligence isn't an arms race. Whether in China according to Chinese rules or whether in the West according to whatever rules that may come, because we have few rules on AI right now, we all want to implement AI in the right way. And we all want to change people's perception. My perception of AI is very positive. And the reason is I see how AI makes my life better. It's not doing complicated things. It's providing passwords, security, payment. It's built into a chain of other things that help me live my life in China. And you want this to be like the movie Her, where the actor can't remember his name now, Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his AI system. You want people to fall in love with AI. You want AI to be implemented properly. Now, the question I have for you is whether the use cases you've seen being used every day in China are more or less than the implementation or use cases that you're using in the West today. I can't know that because I don't live there anymore. So, but what we want to do is to end this concept of the arms race, one being better than the other, and go to a world that says, hey, who implements AI and who makes people fall in love with the use of AI? Two more things. China's a big user of AI, and China has a lot to teach the world on how to use it. And there are things that we want to be concerned about, but there's other things that we really should be looking at adopting and should learn from China because they are ahead at some of the use cases for AI. One final parting thought, and this I put in because I know we're in very difficult times right now. We've got TikTok going on. We've got a lot of conflict between the US and China. This is not a Cold War. I'm old. I lived as a child growing up with duck and cuddles, where as a child in elementary school, we were told to be afraid of an atomic bomb blast, and we had to hide behind underneath the desks, as though that would help if there was an actual nuclear bomb blast. So the concept that this is a Cold War between China and the US is not accurate. Don't make it into that. This is a disagreement over technology. This is a disagreement over superpowers who both are looking to assert power on the planet. But to call this a Cold War is a misnomer, and I just want to get that out there real quickly. But most importantly, use AI, love AI, fall in love with it, and I hope that you saw how we use it in China, and I hope that it helps you get some idea of what's going on over here. So only in Shanghai, me and a pink Ferrari that was across the street from my coffee shop. Only in Shanghai are you going to see this. Do connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and WeChat. I've got my WeChat QR code up there you can scan. I have a book coming out called China's Digital Currency Revolution. It's on my website. You can sign up for launch, richturrin.com. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Do connect, and I look forward to hearing from you. Tell me what you think. I look forward to it. Take care. Bye-bye.